Welcome to All the Right Marketing, where we talk with business owners and industry leaders about marketing their programs and products. Our guests share tips that can help anyone who loves a book, whether you are a librarian, bookseller, author, or publisher. The truth of the matter here is that the advice coming out of these conversations are for creative marketing across industries. Today, we have two guests, which, ladies, I have never done two guests before, interviewed two at one time. This is exciting. We have Antonette, who has spent the last 10 years working primarily in dual language programs across underserved communities in Los Angeles. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about her background and about what she's doing now. I do know that she works for the Long Beach Public Library as a parent engagement coordinator, providing parents and caregivers with tools to support their children's development at home. And she's the co-founder of the organization that we're talking about today, Equity Through Literacy, with Marysol, who has dedicated her career and learning to supporting marginalized communities in various capacities. Both women were educators at some point, whether now or they were in the past, and that's how they met each other. And Marysol's work revolves around the importance of empowering families through literacy. And I just can't wait to hear about all the things these women are doing. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's begin with Antonette. So I want to hear, at some point, how did you and Marysol say, we're going to create this organization? Tell us how it got to that point.
Well, Marysol and I met almost a decade ago, teaching at a school in the Mid-City area of Los Angeles. We're both dual language teachers, and we quickly grew a friendship from there. As we both moved on to other career paths, Marysol created this really amazing program at her school district where she was creating these workshops for parents to basically learn and practice their inherent reading skills, kind of like book clubs, but they worked across different genres, and they would practice basically the same strategies that their children were practicing in the classroom. And that had been a lifelong passion of mine, to create some sort of program where we would be empowering parents to support their children at home, particularly in low-income communities, which we were both working in, and communities that weren't getting the supports, and the schools maybe weren't equipped with the proper amount of faculty or resources to support the parents. And that's where Equity Through Literacy came about. And unfortunately, we started right when the pandemic emerged, literally in March of 2020, maybe a few days or a couple of weeks before they announced everything was shutting down. And so we had to pivot a little bit. And that's where Equity Through Literacy, as it stands now, was born, where we, instead of being able to create these book clubs and workshops for parents, we pivoted a little bit and decided to equip families with resources that they need at home. So we started giving away backpacks, school supplies, because children weren't going to be learning from home now, and we wanted to make sure parents weren't only worried about health and work and monetary needs, but they also didn't have to worry about providing school supplies for their children. We also, most importantly, decided to provide them with books, because that's one of the things that libraries were closed. The school libraries were closed as well. Their classroom libraries were closed, so children wouldn't have access to books. And we've kind of grown from there to where we are now. Now we've become more of a literacy / social emotional / physical development resource group, where we work with a lot of organizations to provide all of the different tools to parents, from art workshops to physical development workshops, definitely focusing on the books. That's our biggest passion, literacy, but just different across the board, getting food to families during the pandemic. Marysol, do you want to add on to that?
Well, I do want to interject real quick and say, good for you for pivoting. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I know we all had this vision before 2020, and then, it really rocked a lot of our worlds, and you could have just stopped, but you didn't. And so I commend both of you women for that, it was something that had just gotten started. It would have been so easy to just say, let's table this. And you didn't, you pivoted. And so many different families and children are benefiting from that. So Marysol, if you could kind of dig a little bit deeper, I want to know, what types of organizations are you connecting to? How are you finding these families? How are you connecting with these families?
So, similar to what Antonette had mentioned, the phase that we're at now is a lot to do with wellness and providing different resources to families that can continue empowering them beyond just books and backpacks, but we always anchor our work back to literacy. So everything that we do is connected to some kind of literature piece, some kind of way, you know, literacy is multidisciplinary, right? So we want to make sure that our parents know that, and our families know that. So everything we do, we always anchor it back to our work and our mission of empowering our families through that. We found ourselves reaching out to and networks and organizations that have missions that align to ours, that are all about supporting marginalized communities and giving back to these communities that need the most resources and support, because historically they've been left out of these, of getting access to these resources, right? So those organizations have that as their primary mission, similar to ours. And then we just reach out and say, hey, we're doing this event. We love the work that you do. Are you interested in joining us? And most of the time, people agree and they bring their part into it. So for example, we have an organization that works with providing clothing and diapers to kiddos and families. So they bring that part. And then we have another organization that provides fresh produce. So they focus on that. So every organization brings what they're passionate about and what they're pushing forward to this larger event, and families go and have just a really great time getting resources. We try to keep it local to whatever community that we're at, so that way it's not just a hand out but a hand up, so that they know that they can go back to these organizations and get involved with the organizations and find out more about how they can continue with this type of involvement within their own communities.
I have never heard it said that way, and I love that. It's not just a handout, but it's a hand up. So it's not just, here are these free things, go, good luck, but it's, here are these free things, we want to support you, come back and reach out to us and we will help you in other ways. That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me, I know you had an event this weekend, so can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's one of the events. It was called the Festive Fiesta. We were with, I believe it was 9 other organizations, and it was like a combination toys slash clothing drive. And we were invited to take part of the event and contribute what we do best, which is setting out our books and having kiddos go and choose a book or 2 of their choice. We always try to make sure that at every event that we either spearhead or take part of, the books that we provide are texts that are engaging for their age levels, as well as representative of who they are, so they see themselves in books. So I believe there was about, I'd say, around 200 participants that were there, and there was all sorts of toys, and we brought in the books, and we had a couple of vegan friendly options for food, and there was clothing. So it was a really nice event in the city of Torrance. It was spearheaded by a couple of other organizations that were actually Long Beach based, but where we hosted the event, they provided that free space for the event to occur. So it was really nice to see communities coming together and seeing, as we mentioned before, these organizations coming together, running a toy drive. One of the organizations, was selling some of her product and putting all of those proceeds into, purchasing toys. So yeah,
That's
it was
wonderful.
all for the community and giving back during the holiday season.
That is wonderful. Now, ladies, we're going to talk about the big question that I want to ask, and that's coming up in a few minutes. The big question as far as, how do you get the books? But before that, I want to know, How are you marketing your company, your organization? How are you getting connected? You said that you will just reach out to other organizations. In what other ways? I know you're on social media, but what are other ways that you're marketing so that people know about equity through literacy?
Social media is a big part of it. And I think at this point, we've developed a little network of organizations that have supported us as in attending some of our events, but also in connecting us with other organizations that they work with. Um, we've also had a really good turnout with some council members. We just spearheaded an event in the city of Griffith Park. That was Los Feliz, that's the city, where we took over a big part of the park, and we had a council member come. She read a book for children. We had zine making, so we had art-based workshops for parents to both think about the literacy benefits of it and the social emotional benefits of creating art at home with their children and taking it home, and also continuing those activities. So we've had a really good turnout with who we've connected with, and that's allowed us to build partnerships, larger partnerships, and just build a larger network. And as we continue to grow, we just keep strengthening these relationships, and it's really been beneficial. A lot of the events that we've spearheaded and that we've put together have included similar organizations, because we try to anchor ourselves around Los Angeles, and a lot of the organizations that we work with are working throughout Los Angeles, and so that's been a big help. But really, it's just us kind of cold calling people, sending cold emails, trying to get our name out there, and really just the message of how much support and how many of these resources families need, and how beneficial these events are to the community.
That's wonderful. And I'm thinking, if you have an art event, you probably pitch an artist or an art educator to come in and lead that. Or you're talking social emotional. Are you reaching out to school counselors to teach that aspect of the workshop and connecting with people in those ways?
We try to sprinkle a little bit of all of it into our events. So for the most part, we've always tried to have some sort of art component, because we feel like art is a really big way to really express yourself for children, especially social emotionally. And that's such an easy way to connect it to literacy. We tend to read a book, and then we'll do an art activity revolving around that, around their feelings, or maybe the characters' feelings, or just being in that space and the environment with their families, how they can represent that in an artistic way. Like we mentioned, we had a zine maker the last time, and the kids were just off the charts excited about making their own zines and creating their own little books. We also try to have a physical component as well, because your physical development, your expressing yourself physically, physical activities also support social emotional development. So we've had yoga instructors, we've had soccer clinics. So we've had organizations that teach soccer to little ones come, and they'll do a soccer clinic. The big piece as well is food, because food insecurity is a big part of your social emotional health. And we want parents to know that there are resources in their communities if they are struggling with access to foods. So we try to sprinkle a little bit of all of it, and we'll work with organizations who are where that's their mission, to both support children and families, not just in the moment, but to equip them with the skills and the strategies that they can take home and continue the work at home.
Such a balanced approach. I love it, ladies. Wonderful. So you're tapping into all of these different areas of the person and the human being and what we need to really thrive and survive. That's wonderful. And Marysol, I would love to ask you the big question, because a lot of our listeners are publishers and bookstores. How are you getting books?
So books is definitely our mission, and it's what's on high demand, right? Oftentimes we rely on micro grants, also private donors. We have had the the honor of having a lot of people really believe in our work and in our mission. So people have donated, funds that go towards the purchasing of these books. We've also reached out to publishers ourselves to see if they were interested in donating any resources to us, and we've had some success in that as well. It's really just what Antonette said, a lot of cold calling and cold emails to see who's interested in supporting us. Sometimes we've had an organization that gives, I believe it's, you can chime in, Antonette, because the name's giving me access. Oh my goodness. It's an organization that provides books that are gently used or new at times. So they've provided us with quite a bit. Most recently, my daughter's former preschool, they do a holiday drive. So they did a holiday drive for us, and they've given us over 100 books that they were able to bring in, the families were to bring in. So a lot of that type of work. Book drives, private donors, and micro grants are currently what really drive this work.
That's wonderful.
And reaching out to publishers as well.
Oh, that is excellent. And we are going to make sure that we put links to your organization in the show notes, so anyone listening can go directly to those donation areas and figure out how they can collaborate with you and help your organization. I have really appreciated your time today, and I have learned so much about what two women can do when they put their amazing brains together and when they've connected, and just the power of community, the power of networking and building relationships. Yeah. You know where to find more about this organization. It'll be in the show notes, and we release our episodes every Tuesday for those of you listening. Until then, think outside of the box and don't be afraid to reach your audience in new and creative ways, like we've seen in this example. Thank you so much, ladies.